G'day, ajmahari here. Are all borderlines dangerous? Is there such a thing as a very dangerous person with borderline personality disorder? Are all borderlines dangerous? What's the most dangerous aspect that there could possibly be, or that could be predictable in a person with borderline personality disorder? Well, this topic, like all, if we're going to discuss this, keeping it real to help people heal and understand, then the first thing I need to say is not all people with borderline personality disorder are the same. Not all people with borderline personality disorder are a homogeneous group. Now, they have many similarities in why they've been diagnosed with BPD, what that means to psychiatry. However, it has a whole, not alternate, but human context meaning that needs to be understood by people who are working with people with BPD, if people with BPD are going to have a chance to recover. So having said that, most people with borderline personality disorder are not dangerous. They can be more so dangerous if untreated, especially to people's psychological health, mental health. They can have a lot of different issues that really create unstable, intense, chaotic, dramatic relational dynamics, relationships, that ways of relating that really hurt people and hurts them too, but really hurts others. So there's that level of danger, which isn't even every person with BPD at that level, because you have to consider also the quiet borderline, who's mostly internalizing everything and taking it out on themselves, not others. So there's so many different variations of how people with BPD actually will act it out or not. People with BPD are in all various different places. Some people don't have BPD that had BPD anymore. Some people have recovered. Some people are far along the road to recovery. Many have created a life worth living and learned how to relate differently to people close to them or a significant other. Many people are getting to those places now, and many people aren't. And many people with BPD are not even seeking treatment, not wanting treatment, very treatment resistant, don't know they have BPD or have been told, don't care. So there's all those differences. To the question, can a person with borderline personality disorder, like I said, they can be psychologically, emotionally, that type of dangerous, many more than not, but not all. And in different ways with some pattern of similarity. I know, clear as mud, right? But they're not all the same. But then there is probably what is a lower percentage for sure of people with borderline personality disorder, male or female, that can be lethally, physically violent, especially domestic violence. Yes, there are people with BPD who can be that dangerous, very physically, not only intimidating, but violent. And also, the movie Fatal Attraction. Now, this is really rare, okay, with people with borderline personality disorder. However, I would also suggest that by the time you see a lot of violence from a female borderline or a male borderline, which won't always be the same, often, not always, there's comorbidity there. There's a lot of other issues at play along with borderline personality disorder. Now, that's not always the case, perhaps. It's hard to say. So I wouldn't say that most people who are with a person with BPD would have to really worry about violence or them being homicidal. But that's not to say there isn't a small percentage. You have to gauge the person that you're close to with borderline personality disorder, or the person that you're about to leave with borderline personality disorder. You have to gauge, and you know them best, right? What are their patterns? Have they intimidated you before? Have they held you hostage in a room, like maybe blocked your way out of a room? Have they ever hit you? Have they aggressed toward you? Extreme verbal abuse and extreme verbal aggression and intimidation can often be a sign that there's a possibility of escalation to physical violence. And physical violence, more often than not, though not the majority of people with BPD, definitely isn't always about being homicidal, but it can be. And that's where I think it's a very low percentage of people with BPD who don't have comorbidity with something else, or who in fact perhaps potentially weren't really accurately diagnosed in the first place. So there's a wide range of behavior across all of people with BPD, and they're not all the same. But I believe there are, last count, and we have to give psychiatry their due for their definition of this, over 256 symptoms of borderline personality disorder. Now, that doesn't mean everybody with borderline personality disorder will have 256 symptoms. So you need to really gauge who you're close to. If it's a parent, if it's your adult child, if it's a partner, an ex-partner, boyfriend, a girlfriend, a friend, a relative, you need to really look at how they're behaving. And that's going to give you your best cue and clue as to, could this person be really violent, rather than thinking, as some YouTubers will go to such extremes, and people with blogs, etc., will go to such extremes to say, oh, watch out, they're all really dangerous, and like the Fatal Attraction, holding of the knife, and they're all gonna just kill you. Far, far from it. However, having said that, if you are with a very aggressive, acting out, raging borderline person, or near one, okay, then you need to assess verbal abuse, extreme aggressive language and verbal abuse, along with intimidation, blocking your way out of rooms, ever having pushed you, pinched you, or hit you. I mean, even before the maybe you might be trying to assess if you're going to be hit or worse. Watch for the verbal abuse, the intimidation tactics, the rage. What do they do? Because that's going to be the best cue right there for each person who's near somebody this volatile with BPD. People with BPD can be all kinds of volatile without getting to this ultimate place of this very violent to more than dangerous volatility. And so don't ever, like I've had clients say to me, well, I don't know, women especially, I don't know if I should leave him because, a borderline male, because but it goes the other way too, because he's, he's raged and he's thrown things at me and I've ducked, or he's thrown things beside my head, or he's punched holes in the wall beside my head, but slammed doors, broken things, screamed, yelled, threatened me, but he's never really hit me. Well, those are all signs that this particular, person with BPD, or, a person with BPD in your life showing these kind of signs is very much potentially, can't say 100% for sure, but you should be very careful not to tolerate all of those big red flags and then say, well, but he or she's never hit me. And I have a lot of male clients, not just now, but like over the years, I've had so many male clients too, and females, but they've been pushed or pinched, or their way has been blocked out of a room. And then I've had a lot of male clients whose borderline wives or girlfriends have absolutely hit them multiple times. And then, men can maybe better defend themselves, but the point is, if so there's a lot of that kind of dangerous, violent, which is totally unacceptable and over the top. And it can all be such a slippery slope with some who have BPD that they can get to this extreme nature of behavior and rage and being out of control. And then, going from the really aggressive verbal abuse and or any physical intimidation to the next step. And you can't predict that they won't. And often people don't think they will until they do. So you got to really think about that. So to the answer, can people with BPD be dangerous? Well, certainly not all of them at all. Beyond, psychologically, etc. Yes. But in terms of violent, physically violent, and or homicidal, very rare, but it does happen. And so people have to be very careful about assessing what you're actually seeing and experiencing. And you should not stay in the proximity of a person with borderline personality disorder who may well be have a comorbid diagnosis or issues happening. Substance abuse can make this worse too. It doesn't for everybody with or without BPD. But again, there is a smaller percentage of people with borderline personality disorder that can be very violent, that can be homicidal, even without comorbidity. And I think that unfortunately there's so much misdiagnosis of borderline personality disorder in men who are getting labeled with narcissistic personality disorder often when they would fit borderline personality disorder. There's still gender bias and issues with diagnoses all over the place. But to this point I'm making here, prisons, yes, there's some women in them with BPD, but prisons are, I don't want to say full of, but there's large prison populations, especially of males. They're not all psychopaths. They're not all narcissists. Many of them have borderline personality disorder and may not be diagnosed. And many of them, a lot of domestic abuse and that kind of the kind of domestic violence that occurs in relationships, often from men, but sometimes from women, that doesn't come out of a vacuum. And so if you want more information on this topic, I can't remember the title of the book, but a book coming to my mind here that's important. Just look up Kevin Dutton. He's a psychologist, I believe, from the UK, or could be from Canada, living in the UK, or lives from UK, but it's been in Canada. Anyway, Kevin Dutton, I believe, is his name. And I have a few of his books. He has one on, I think it's called The Batterer, because that's the thing, like there are some people, a percentage of people with BPD would be a lower percentage who can be batterers, who are physically violent in domestic partnership, in relationship. And so that isn't always about borderline personality disorder. It can be about other things, or maybe just an undiagnosed person. But yes, some people with borderline personality disorder can be very violent and degrees of violence. But once they've gone to very verbally aggressive, very hostile, intimidating behavior, or blocking you out of it from leaving, getting out of a car, leaving the house, getting out of a room, to any kind of physical, like harsh physical touch, like a pinch, a push, holding, grabbing your arm, throwing things around the room. All those are big red flags. Now, they don't always mean that the person with borderline personality, male or female, is going to escalate to the next level, but that is an alarm bell for you to get away from that person and that relationship, because you can't predict which borderline is going to go over that to punching or beating you up and which one isn't. So yes, people, a small percentage, but if that happens to be somebody you're with, that doesn't matter. So not all people with BPD are dangerous or violent or homicidal, but some definitely are. So watch for what's happening with the person that you're close to or have been, or you're wondering about the relationship with. If you've seen any of those signs I've mentioned, or you have been hit, or you have been held hostage in a room, or you have been held in a car, or anything else of that nature that's an escalation to something really physical happening, you're in dangerous territory, and you need to observe that and not wait thinking, oh, well, they won't hit me if they haven't already hit you. So I hope that was helpful. And I want to just really make sure to say again, it's a lower percentage of people with borderline personality disorder, especially without comorbidity and other things going on, but they do exist. And some borderlines can get quite violent, and some can be homicidal. So you need to take seriously this possibility, given certain escalatory things that you may have already seen and not been heeding, thinking, well, he or she hasn't hit me. But what if they've trapped you in a room? What if they've trapped you in the house? What if they've trapped you in the car? What if they've thrown things around you, even if they weren't intending to hit you? Because the thing is, that's all a level of out of control, that the slippery slope to the next violent actions beyond that are not necessarily within the control of people with BPD who get to those outer edges. And it certainly isn't all, but whatever percentage it is, you have to be really attuned to what is the borderline around you doing, or what have they already done? What are those big red flags about, if in fact you're seeing them? Take care.